All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the IRS rulebook to really get a handle on one of the toughest issues workers can face, being misclassified. And this isn't going to be a simple overview. No, we're doing a full technical teardown of the specific tool the IRS gives you to fight back, that's Form 8919, and reclaim your proper status as an employee.
So, does this scenario sound familiar? It's tax season, you open the mail expecting a nice, simple W-2 from your job, but instead, you get a Form 1099 NEC. And then you see it, a self-employment tax bill that is way, way bigger than you ever expected. For so many people, this is that sinking feeling, that moment you realize something is just not right. And that's exactly what we're here to unpack.
So what is actually going on here? Well, it's called worker misclassification. It's when a company brings you on, tells you what to do, how to do it, but then slaps the label independent contractor on you. Now let's be clear, this is not just about a title. It's a huge financial maneuver that takes the employer's share of Social Security and Medicare taxes and drops them right in your lap. You end up losing out on benefits, legal protections, and a serious amount of your hard-earned money.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the tax trap itself. Then, we'll introduce Form 8919, which is your way out. After that, we'll get into the real technical stuff, the reason codes and the whole SS8 determination process. And finally, we'll crunch the numbers and talk about the real-world consequences you need to consider. Let's get started. First things first, let's talk about the exact financial hit you take from misclassification. Because this is more than just an annoyance on your tax return. It's a direct shot to your wallet. So here's the absolute heart of the problem. As a regular employee, you pay your half of FICA taxes, that's Social Security and Medicare, and your boss pays their half. Simple. But when you're misclassified as a contractor, you get slammed with what's called the self-employment tax, or SECA. And what that means is you are now on the hook for paying both sides of the tax, your share and the share your employer was supposed to pay. Your tax liability literally doubles. It's a huge burden. But here's the good news. The IRS has created a very specific path for you to fix this, a way to correct the record and put that tax liability back where it belongs. Let's take a look at the form designed for this exact situation. So to use Form 8919, and the official title is Uncollected Social Security and Medicare Tax on Wages, you have to meet 4 very clear conditions. 1, you worked for a company. 2, you genuinely believe you were working as an employee. 3, they didn't withhold those FICA taxes from your pay. And 4, and this is the absolute key, your specific situation has to line up with one of the IRS's official reason codes. And I want to stress, this is not just about saving a bunch of money on this year's tax bill, as great as that is. Filing Form 8919 is also about protecting your long-term future. It makes sure that your earnings get reported correctly as wages to the Social Security Administration, and that directly impacts how much you'll receive in retirement and disability benefits down the road. It's a huge deal. Okay, now we're getting into the real nitty-gritty of doing this right. The reason codes are everything. They are your legal justification for filing this form, and you have to pick the one that perfectly fits your story. So let's decode them. This chart lays out the most important codes. Let's look at A and C. These are pretty much a slam dunk. It means you've already got something in writing from the IRS saying you're an employee. Case closed, you're good to go. Now E and G are a bit of a package deal. If you look around and see coworkers doing the same job as you, being treated as employees, you can use Code E. But, and this is a big but, it means you also have to file Form SS8 and then use Code G on your Form 8919 to tell the IRS you're waiting for that official ruling. Now let's zoom in on reason code H, because for a lot of people, this one is a real game changer. This is for that weird situation where your employer gave you both a W-2 for your regular pay, but also a 1099 for something else, maybe a bonus or an award. Well, because they've already acknowledged you're an employee with that W-2, the IRS cuts you a break. You get to skip the whole long Form SS8 process. You can just use Code H and directly reclassify that 1099 money as wages. It's a fantastic shortcut. So, we just mentioned that other form, the SS8. It is really important to understand where this fits in because it's a completely separate and much, much slower process than just filing your taxes.
And this slide really nails the difference. Think of it this way. Form SS8 is you asking the IRS for a ruling. You're petitioning them to investigate and make an official call on your employment status. And that can take 6 months, maybe even longer. Form 8919 is you acting on your current tax return. It's how you calculate and pay only your share of the FICA tax right now. For some of those reason codes, you have to do the SS8 first to set the stage for your 8919.
So what can you expect if you file a Form SS8? Well, you need to know that this is not a secret process. The IRS is absolutely going to contact the company and get their side of the story. Also, there are some ground rules. The IRS won't touch it if you're already in a lawsuit over the issue, and they'll only look at tax years that are still open to review. And probably most important, you have to be patient. This is a marathon, not a sprint.
All right, let's talk numbers. You figured out you can file Form 8919, you've got your reason code, so how do you actually calculate the correct tax you owe?
The first number you absolutely have to know is the Social Security wage-based limit. This number changes just about every year. For 2025, it's projected to be $176,100. Now, what this means is that this is the maximum amount of your income that's subject to the Social Security tax. So if you earn more than that, you stop paying the Social Security part of the tax on any earnings above that limit. The Medicare tax, though, that applies to everything. And here are the magic numbers you'll use on Form 8019. Remember, you are only calculating the employee's half. That's 6.2% for Social Security, but only on wages up to that limit we just talked about. And it's 1.45% for Medicare on every single dollar you earned. That's it. You use these rates, and just like that, you're paying what you would have owed if you had been classified correctly from the start.
Okay, just a quick but super important clarification. Do not get Form 8919 mixed up with Form 4137. They might look similar because they both deal with uncollected FICA taxes, but they are for completely different worlds. You use Form 8919 when your very status as an employee is the whole problem. Form 4137, that's for people who are already employees but need to pay FICA taxes on tip income they didn't report to their boss. Totally different issues. Now, filing these forms, it doesn't happen in a bubble. It kicks off a chain of events and has real consequences, not just for you, but for the employer as well. So let's think about what happens next. So when the IRS comes knocking on the employer's door, it's not always the end of the world for them. If the company messed up, but they didn't do it with intentional disregard, meaning they weren't being deliberately fraudulent, there's a part of the tax code, Section 3509, that actually gives them some relief. It can dramatically reduce the back taxes and penalties they owe, which hopefully encourages them to get it right in the future.
And employers have another powerful defense they can use. It's called the Section 530 safe harbor. Basically, if a company can prove they had a good reason for treating you like a contractor, maybe it's been the standard in their industry for decades, and they were diligent about filing all the required 1099 forms, the IRS might actually back off and be prevented from reclassifying you. So, this is it. This is the choice you have to weigh. The benefits, they are crystal clear. You immediately cut your FICA tax bill in half, you fix your Social Security record for the future, and you push that tax burden back onto the employer, where it legally belongs. But the risks, they are just as real. The employer is going to find out. The IRS will contact them, and in at-will employment states, there's always that possibility of retaliation, or even being let go. And all of this brings us to that final, massive question. When a company misclassifies a worker, is it just an honest bookkeeping mistake, a simple clerical error? Or is it a deliberate strategy, a core part of the business model designed to slash costs by shifting the burden directly onto the shoulders of the worker? Knowing about tools like Form 8919 is your first best step in being able to challenge that model.